Welcome to the NCDWI Guide podcast, where defenders of the Constitution assemble to prepare for courtroom battle and firm owners gather to develop marketing strategies that will revolutionize the practice of criminal defense. Here's your host, the NCDWI guy, Jake Minnick.
Hello, fellow freedom fighters, and welcome to episode 133 of the NCDWI Guide podcast. On today's episode, we have Alan Eargle, who is the Chief Executive Officer of Corrisoft. He's talking to us today about some of the technologies that exist in the legal marketplace today to help to address addiction and monitor alcohol. He also gives us a forecast of some of the technologies that are coming down the road that will impact the legal industry for criminal defense lawyers. Alan is a staunch believer that technology can be a great equalizer and that we must continue to find improved ways to serve our underserved populations. Alan is involved at all levels of operation at Corrisoft and oversees all management efforts. He previously held positions in investment groups as well as several locations of a Fortune 500 company, but always has gravitated towards innovative and socially beneficial products and services. Alan has a proven track record of achievement, expanding responsibility, and sound financial analysis, and has implemented several product launch and growth initiatives while at Corrisoft. He has also served as a board member for private companies and nonprofit organizations. He holds a Bachelor's of Science degree from Westminster College. Most importantly, he is a husband and father of 4 fantastic children. Great conversation today with Alan, and I look forward to sharing this with you. So, Alan, I'm really excited to have you on the show today to kind of share a little bit about what Corrisoft is doing in legal technology, especially in the kind of alcohol arena. So tell us just a little bit about what Corrisoft is doing, technologies that are being utilized. Just a little bit about what you guys are doing on that front.
Sure. I'll give you the highest level overview that I can, because I can go a little long-winded.
That's all right. That's okay.
Yeah. So what we've done is tried to create effectively a toolbox of solutions that help enable people in their either rehabilitation or recovery or their probation or even in pretrial, just show up to court. What we're trying to do is use technology, use software, use hardware to leverage an equal playing field for everybody, right? So access to services, those kind of things. So from a Corrisoft perspective, what we like to do is offer tools really around 3 tenets, right? So there's accountability, there's communication, and then there's education. So the combination of those 3 tenets are what I believe leads to behavioral change. So from an accountability standpoint, we offer things such as, your traditional ankle monitors, but also cellular phones that have been locked down by our team of software engineers that are way smarter than I am. And app-based products that will respect the privacy of the individual, but still geolocate when you've got a report that you're somewhere where maybe you're supposed to be. And then from a communication standpoint, all of our products build in, some sort of type of communication tool, be it notifications, our proprietary messaging system, video chat, selfie requests, questionnaires, just really trying to gauge and engage in that additional communication with people. And then from an education standpoint, I believe wholeheartedly in e-learning as an augmentation And so we offer a learning management system that can deliver, skills-based courses, GED programs, treatment programs, especially when you're talking about alcohol. That's really a journey, right? It's a journey for a lot of people in recovery. And so we want to make sure that, one, we're touching people very often. Right. There have been a number of studies that have shown the more times you interact with somebody, the more likely they are to change their behavior. But two, that we're providing them additional education and tools that will help them overcome some of the circumstances that they've gotten themselves into in the first place. So is that a high enough level
Yeah,
overview?
no, I think that's so powerful. And I particularly love the education piece of things. I think that so often from a client's perspective, most of the kind of core interaction or different requirements just feel like boxes to check off. And I've got to do this many hours of community service. I've got to go to this class. I've got to do this ankle bracelet, do inpatient treatment, whatever the kind of requirements are. And again, ultimately, the purpose of the court system, at least one of the main functions of the court system, should be to help rehabilitate. And obviously, probation, I feel like, has taken some positive steps towards that goal, especially in recent years. In being less of a kind of punishment-based model to more of a rehabilitation-based model. But education really is where that rehabilitation model starts. So I just love that education piece of things.
Yeah, I mean, it is absolutely paramount that when maybe somebody goes on probation or is released to a treatment or accountability court, that you don't fall into the same patterns that led to that decision in the first place, right? And one of the best ways that you can contribute to somebody changing their perspective is to provide them tools to be able to change their perspective, to expand their view of maybe what they see the world as right now into something that is beyond where they're at. And that's why I'm a huge believer in education, not just from we'll call it a traditional education sense, but also from a skills development sense, right? Like there are a ton of programs that we offer that are trade based, right? How to become a plumber, or how to basics of electricity, that take maybe a box that somebody put themselves into from a vocational standpoint and say, no, you have the ability. Oh, you're good at video games. Maybe an electrician is an interesting path for you, or maybe a network admin is an interesting path for you. So you're taking things that they're interested in and connecting them to maybe skills or trades, because in a probation sense, unemployment and underemployment is such a huge factor in somebody reoffending, that we want to make sure that we're giving them the tools to be able to interview effectively, maintain a job, keep workplace conduct, and allow them to sort of thrive from a vocational standpoint. And in a lot of instances, education really helps with those steps along the way.
Yeah, that's so critical. I mean, it really is like the turning around your life from an addiction really does require, like, in my opinion, a goal to be working towards. Not just to kind of stop drinking or stop using drugs, but kind of a purpose for why am I doing that? What is the kind of the big picture in my life? And so I think having those vocational aspects of, okay, well, here's a career path that might be helpful on that front. That to me is such a powerful change agent in terms of contributing to that kind of walk away from addiction.
Yeah, well, even in just like, I mean, it sounds kind of funny, but even in just a basic elemental stance, right? Idle time is not good for those people with addiction,
For
right?
sure. Yeah. Which
And
is why
so
kind of these past couple of years of lockdown have been very challenging, because it really it's very
exactly.
dangerous.
Yeah, no, you're seeing overdoses rise. You're seeing number of driving under the influence rise. You're seeing all of this, all of these statistics around, recreational drugs, alcohol abuse. All of these numbers are climbing, and I have to think that just having the time to do those things is a large contributing factor, and so when you give somebody a class to complete, or when you give somebody meaningful employment, they no longer have that idle time associated with just hanging around. And I think even just filling time is a good contributor to getting a better outcome.
Yeah, totally agree. I think one of the things that we as a legal industry are challenged by is some of the technology advancements that come along that are helpful to clients, and I think it's because we are so focused as criminal defense lawyers, as DWI defense lawyers, on how to kind of mitigate what's going on in the courtroom. And it's not to say that we, ignore everything else, nor should we, but I think that that is the primary focus. So it's kind of always being driven by what will help the sentence kind of be better. So in North Carolina, inpatient treatment can very often be kind of a helpful mechanism for minimizing a sentence or replacing jail time. Continuous alcohol monitoring by an ankle bracelet can do the same thing, reduce the amount of time required at certain sentence levels for DWI convictions. But again, anything that's kind of not necessarily able to be utilized in the courtroom, it's kind of a question of, well, what is the value of this? And so there's just not that much understanding. So in terms of some of these like app-based kind of monitoring programs or alternatives to continuous alcohol monitoring, what are some of the other alternatives that are out there, and how do you see treatment courts, probation, individual lawyers, how do you see those being utilized?
Yeah. So, I think one thing to circle back to something you said is, that there are a lot of tools out there. And one of the problems that I think we focus on a lot of times is trying to find that silver bullet,
Yes.
right? That one size fits all device, or that one size fits all tool. And that's why from our perspective, we want to offer as many tools as we possibly can, because what works for you may not necessarily work for me. So while a continuous alcohol monitor might work for you, it might not work for me. I may have a job that there's a stigma associated with wearing that. I may have a set of life circumstances where that's not the level of accountability that I need. So I can be on a app-based integrated with a breathalyzer, where I'm testing just a couple of times a day. I could be on, a solution that is, a portable breath test that's doing video. I would argue that the goal of any program should be the least amount of accountability needed for that person, because you don't want to disrupt their life. You want to hold them accountable. And as we look towards some of the higher accountability tools, those are great for some people, not great for a lot of others. And so when we take this one size fits all approach, you get a lot of people that might need a red flag device, or might need more of a guardrail device, as opposed to something that is high accountability. And when we offer something, for example, we offer an app-based alcohol. It's a pocket breathalyzer, because what we're trying to do is set up a system of guardrails, right? We want to know if you're drinking. We want to hold you accountable to that, but we don't want to disrupt your life. So I'm not sure that answered your question,
no,
or if I went
I
off
guess
in my
actually
own direction.
no, you're totally good. I think in terms of that kind of alcohol based monitoring, I think again, sometimes as attorneys, I think we're missing, some of the mitigation techniques that we can use in the courtroom, because we kind of get stuck in, well, what is allowed statutorily, and the continuous alcohol monitoring for somebody that's having to pay for that themselves can get pretty expensive pretty quickly. And I know that some of the kind of app or phone-based periodic monitoring solutions that are out there are a good bit cheaper, where you can still go in front of the court and say, my client has been using this kind of phone-based system for 3 months. There has been no, alcohol recorded events. So just speak to that a little bit, whether it's from a cost perspective, or kind of how that technology actually works.
Sure. Yeah. So I could probably only speak to mine, because I'm not really privy to a lot of the technical details of some of our competition's products. But I will tell you, from our perspective, what we utilize is a system called Checkback, and it's a app-based product with a portable breathalyzer. And we offer a number of different breathalyzers, ranging from very low cost to NHTSA DOT compliant devices that all interact with the same device. But really what you're talking about in some of this, prevention devices, screening devices, if you can get a judge to understand or to agree that a screening program is good for an individual, as opposed to a continuous alcohol monitoring device, you're talking maybe a $2 per day cost or a $3 per day cost versus a $12 or $15 per day cost, which is huge, significant. Right. And not trying to imply that there aren't people that need that high level of accountability, but there may be people who, having a lower cost device, more money for other things in their life, are able to do things that better aid their recovery.
Yeah, I can think of a specific example of this that I see, kind of with some frequency for higher repeat offenders, or people that have had multiple DUIs, or a serious accident that was caused by DUI, where there's a kind of hefty bond that is imposed. Or where the DA kind of comes in and asks for a bond hearing. One of the things that is often requested, at least that I've seen this in multiple counties where I practice in, is that the DA will ask for, as a condition of release, continuous alcohol monitoring, which makes sense. I mean, I understand why that is a requirement. But I think part of that is because, again, there's no knowledge that there's other solutions that are out there. And if this is something that you as the attorney can offer to the court, my client can provide proof of sobriety by these, kind of regular and random periodic breath testing requirements through their phone, then basically you can give the state the same thing that they are looking for at a fifth of the cost. And so that is a real benefit. We still are stuck in this kind of statutory situation where, for court mitigation purposes at this point, CAM is what would be required for a statutory mitigation. But for pretrial release, or even as a kind of supplemental thing to the continuous alcohol monitoring for mitigation purposes. This is just a very cheap way of showing to the court, or prior to doing a DMV hearing where you're asking for a client's restoration. This is a very cheap way to prove continuous sobriety, or at least very high. Be pretty difficult to get around this based on the amount of tests that might be required and the fact that they're random. It'd be pretty difficult to cheat this technology. So even though it's not continuous in the same sense that the bracelet is, it's providing that level of oversight that the state is looking for.
Correct. And it goes back to that same concept of one size fits all, right? Your first time or second time DUI, defendant might not need the same level of accountability or device as your fifth or sixth time defendant, right? And in applying, a one size fits all blanket policy, what you're doing is effectively, not allowing the best tool for that individual. And so that's my plea, and that's what I try to go around and educate on, is that there are multiple tools, there are multiple price points. Yes, public safety is paramount, right? Because I think you and I both know there's a lot of drunk driving that happens before somebody gets arrested for their first DUI. And so the more we can lower the cost, the more we can make the message about prevention, as opposed to monitoring and sort of trying to catch people doing things, then the more likely we are to get significant increase in benefits. Right?
Yeah, I think I totally agree. I think that that barrier of entry so often is cost, because with a DWI case, there's so many costs that are coming at people left and right, and it's always, to me, a real conversation to have. I kind of always go through, like, in a perfect world, here's everything that you would do before we walk into the courtroom. However, money doesn't grow on trees. We're going to have to probably be selective. There's very few people that are just like, money is not an issue. And so again, if you can get to that same kind of end objective of, proving to the court your client's sobriety, or also just having this as an opportunity for the client. When you have, I think we too often as attorneys miss when a client walks into the office addressing the underlying issue, right? Like, obviously we're here to help you through the criminal case and what the consequences are, but we often, I think, miss that real valuable opportunity to help change somebody's life. And again, for somebody that just says, I fell off the wagon, or this has been going on for a long time, and this has been kind of the straw that broke the camel's back. When you get that sense that somebody is looking kind of for a life change when it comes to addiction, this is just such a valuable way to say, here's an immediate thing that you can do. If you're trying to kind of hold yourself accountable, regardless of what happens in the courtroom, this is an easy and relatively inexpensive way to kind of be accountable, to have that accountability structure in place. That is to me, accountability is so killer. I mean, it's so critical to making life changes, is having some sort of accountability. And it's we're missing an opportunity if we're not letting people know about some of these options out there.
Yeah, I agree. And like, I sound like a broken record, right? It's just and finding the right tool to be able to provide to somebody to achieve the maximum result. It is really what I think is generating a lot of this focus nationwide on what's out there. And I love the fact that you're inquisitive and asking about what additional options are out there, because the truth is necessity breeds innovation, and it is necessary for us to find additional tools to be able to fit as many people as we can, right? Whether it's from a cost perspective, whether it's from a rehabilitation perspective, whether it's from just a public safety perspective. The necessity is there because at the end of the day, the number of people that we incarcerate is too high for a number of reasons. And I think a lot of the national wave that you hear is recognition of that. And so now it's about, okay, how do we solve the problem of this? Well, you solve it through innovative products. You solve it through thinking differently than you have in the past. And so that's where it becomes paramount that you not just become aware of new tools, new innovative products, new things that are coming on, but that you be willing to try as well. That you be willing to say, I'm going to try, but I'm going to try in a controlled setting. I'm going to measure the effectiveness, and then I'm going to see, how this makes an impact on our caseload or on our people. And that's sort of my plea to the courts, is that in a very controlled setting, you just continue to look towards innovation so that you don't repeat some of the same set of circumstances that have led to sort of the condition that we're in right now.
Yeah, I love that. And I guess to kind of follow up on that, in terms of some of the innovative technologies that are coming down the pike, because again, I think you and I had talked before, the legal industry is kind of decades behind what exists currently, in the here and now today. But in terms of technologies that are coming down the road that might impact the DWI arena, what are some of the things that you are expecting or have kind of seen coming into the marketplace?
Yeah. So once again, necessity breeds innovation. So there's been a mandate issued as part of the infrastructure bill that, all new cars will have some sort of alcohol detection technology. It's the next generation, right? It was seat belts, and then it was rear view mirrors, and then, there's just been this history of innovation when it comes to automobiles, and sort of alcohol is the next generation of that. And I know that there are some statewide programs going around some sensors and things like that, but there really is a lot of innovation that's occurring in that arena, whether it's air-based sensors or surveillance, in-vehicle surveillance of distracted driving. We in particular are working with a company on how do you prevent somebody from even starting the car in the first place through the breathalyzer functionality, not as a traditional ignition interlock, but more of a prevention method, right? So that they know the instances where they're likely to either fall off the wagon or and so the product that we're working with, is a module that goes into the car, interacts with the phone gives it commands, and then it can effectively start or disable the car based on that. Now, there are other technologies. I think probably one of the biggest frontiers that is next on the line is marijuana impairment.
Yes.
As the number of states continue to legalize, then there becomes this, well, it's legal, but does it also impair? And if it impairs, at what level? And so that's probably what I would think is the next frontier. Is you're going to start to see, a lot of studies based on, okay, what's an impairment level for marijuana? You're going to see a lot of innovation around, how do you detect it? We're starting to work with a company on that side of, okay, it's legal, but okay, it can also impair you. How do we very rapidly detect marijuana use? Because somebody who's a marijuana user at 1 hour is not the same as a marijuana user at 4 hours, and a lot of the drug testing is generally over a 24-hour period. And so what does that look like? So that's sort of the interesting sort of next generation stuff that I see coming down the pike that I'm really excited to
those
get
are
at and
super interesting. Well, yeah, when you told me about the kind of the mandate in terms of vehicles having some sort of alcohol detection process, did you mention that there is a kind of specific year, which obviously may be subject to change, but that there's kind of like a pinpointed game plan for that being part of the requirement?
Yeah, so I believe, and gosh, you're going to catch me on not being up to date on my congressional policy here, but I believe right now the best estimate that Mothers Against Drunk Driving has put out is that cars in production by the year 2026 for release in 2027 would be when this is necessary. Now, that leaves us a gap because it's the year 2022.
Right.
So if we start talking about the year 2022 to the year 2027, you're talking about the potential for another 60,000 lives being lost due to alcohol related incidents. And so that's where we're really excited about some of these newer tools that are coming to the market that are cost effective, right? That's number one. Most importantly, how do we make it cost effective in the rising of inflation, right? Everybody's pocketbook's getting pinched a little bit. And so how do you make cost-effective tools that can achieve what the bill is trying to achieve, right? Because the goal is absolutely an admirable one, right? How do we prevent a lot of this drunk driving? But if we waited until 2027, then there's a lot of lives that could potentially be lost. And so there are tools that we can find out there, be it, your portable breathalyzers, be it software applications like the checkback system that we use, or there's another one called Sober Drive that that really gear more towards prevention on the front end, right? And responsibility, and trying to achieve the fact that people can make their own decisions and they don't have to decide, even in a state of impairment, to get behind the wheel after having a few drinks, or at least just once again bringing it full circle, educating yourself.
Yes, yeah,
right?
I think
educating yourself
that's
on
so powerful.
What your tolerance level, what your actual tolerance level is versus what you think your tolerance level is.
Yeah, and I think the reason that is so helpful is that the vast majority of the population has never blown into a breath testing device, has pretty limited understanding of what it would take to get to a 0.08 breath alcohol concentration. And so just having that, again, knowledge out there, that I think is a great method of prevention, because again, I think I have plenty of clients who I firmly believe get in the car thinking that they are totally good to drive. They've had a couple of drinks. They may have heard something in the past that, you can have one beer an hour, and be fine to drive. And, there's no further information about, well, what gravity is that beer? Is it a, 40 ounce beer, or, 12 ounce? I mean, there's no information. It's just kind of this blind suggestion in terms of what is allowed. But I also think, in addition to kind of the prevention of kind of accidents or fatalities related to DWI that this kind of future date has. The other thing I think for us to be thinking out about, because this is a podcast geared primarily towards DWI defense lawyers, is, these changes are coming down the road. And at some point, whether it takes 5 or 10 years to implement, and then you obviously have cars without this technology still in the market space, for a much longer period time than that. But that these changes are coming. And I think that we are a front line of kind of helping to address addiction. And so when it becomes impossible to get behind the wheel and drive, which it's going to, I mean, again, seatbelt kind of mindset is the exact same thing as what's, if this technology is available, the buy-in is going to become so great, and the pressure point and pushing of these policies by all kinds of different groups that are able to go in and lobby for these changes. It's coming down the pike, and at the point that you can no longer drive impaired, it doesn't address for that person the underlying addiction. So I think that we have like a window of opportunity as DWI defense lawyers of 10 to 15 years where we can still be very much involved in helping people change their habits. Because again, good thing that comes out of having vehicles with this technology, much less likely accidents on the road, fatalities. Person doesn't end up in the courtroom facing charges. But again, maybe their addiction never gets addressed because this is the moment in terms of the criminal pressure that they're under and the circumstances of having to kind of face front and center. I didn't realize things had gotten this far out of hand. There's kind of a real turning point moment that happens in at least in some people's lives when they get this charge. And so I think that it's also a call to us as counselors to be able to help people in that fight against addiction, because we may have kind of a limited opportunity to do that moving forward.
Yeah, and I know your audience is primarily DWI attorneys, and what I would say is, right, the same thing that I would say to anybody, that impairment is probably never going to go away, right? If it's not alcohol, it will be something else, and if it's not something else, then it'll be the third thing. And so impaired driving will probably always be a part of your practice. And the opportunities that you have to not only affect that individual, but also address some of the concerns that are underlying under that issue is fantastic, right? Because when somebody gets in trouble, you and your fellow defense attorneys are a lot of times in that trusted advisor role. And as they're looking for a path to navigate through this, you can provide education and resources in saying, hey, I'm not just trying to get you off of this charge, but we're trying to prevent you from even coming in here again, right? Or moving on to the next thing that's going to impair you while driving. And that's where I just really appreciate the opportunity to speak to you today, because as a general rule, I don't think impairment is ever going away.
Yes.
a country, we've gone through various stages of what what chemical substances contribute to impairment. And so if alcohol is the one that we're addressing today, there will be another one that pops up tomorrow. And as attorneys who are focused in this arena, I thank you and the people that are listening to this for taking the time to try to figure out some of the underlying issues and what technology options are available and what education options are available, because it really is important to address some of those underlying root causes that lead to the behavior, not just try to address the behavior.
Yeah, totally agree with that, and I think that should be a real personal challenge for everybody that is listening. Is how are we helping our clients, improve their lives? Obviously, we want to get the best outcome for them in the courtroom, but again, that there is a real opportunity to have a life-changing impact on your client, and these technologies can definitely be one way forward on that. So I appreciate, Alan, so much the information and you sharing all of this with the audience. It's so helpful to us as a bar to understand what exists currently in terms of technology and also what's coming down the pike.
No, absolutely. I really appreciate you having me on. Really appreciate you having me on and being able to speak with your audience. Yeah.
If you found the information in this podcast to be valuable, I simply ask that you pay it forward and share this podcast with another member of the legal community. Also, if you would leave us a rating or a review on whatever platform you are listening on, I would greatly appreciate it.